Robert was at his wit's end. Months of unemployment had drained his savings, and now he was borrowing money from friends just to put food on the table. His friend, Michael, sympathized with his plight and offered a strange solution. "I have this old book," Michael said, his voice low and secretive. "It's supposed to contain rituals for summoning wealth. I've never tried it, but if you're desperate enough." Robert hesitated, eyeing the worn leather-bound book Michael held out. It looked ancient, its pages yellow and fragile. "Are you serious?" Robert asked, skepticism coloring his voice. Michael shrugged. "It's worth a shot, right? The book's at my place. Take it. Try it out. What's the worst that could happen?" Reluctantly, Robert took the book. That night, alone in his apartment, he opened it. The pages were filled with strange symbols and cryptic instructions. Candlelight flickered as he read aloud the incantations that promised wealth beyond imagination. As Robert delved deeper into the rituals, the room seemed to grow colder. Shadows danced on the walls, taking on eerie shapes that made him shiver. He pressed on, determined to change his fortune. Suddenly, the candles extinguished themselves, plunging the room into darkness. Robert's heart raced as a chill swept through him. He heard faint whispers, felt a presence looming in the blackness. Fear gripped him, but it was too late to turn back. The ritual had begun, and with it, a malevolent force stirred in the shadows. This was only the beginning of Robert's descent into terror. In the oppressive darkness of his apartment, Robert stood frozen, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The air felt heavy, laden with an unnatural chill that seeped into his bones. He strained his eyes, trying to pierce the darkness that seemed to press in around him. Whispers, faint and insidious, echoed in the silence. They were unintelligible yet filled with a sinister intent that sent shivers down his spine. Robert's hands trembled as he fumbled for a match, desperate to relight the candles. With trembling fingers, he managed to strike a match. The flame flickered to life, casting a feeble glow that barely illuminated the corners of the room. Shadows danced wildly, mocking his feeble attempt to dispel the darkness. As Robert gathered his resolve, he sensed movement in the periphery of his vision. A shape, indistinct and fluid, flitted across the edge of the candlelight. His heart pounded louder, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Who's there?" Robert's voice cracked with fear. The room remained silent, save for the whispering voices that seemed to grow louder, mocking him. Then, from the deepest shadows, emerged a figure. It was cloaked in darkness, its features obscured by a hooded veil. Robert's breath caught in his throat as he stared into eyes that glowed with a malevolent light. The entity drifted closer, its presence suffocating. Robert tried to back away, but his feet remained rooted to the spot. Panic surged within him as the entity extended a spectral hand towards him, fingers elongating into gnarled claws. In a voice that echoed through his mind, the entity whispered, "You summoned me, mortal. Now, you shall serve." Robert's world spun into a nightmare as the entity's chilling touch enveloped him, marking the beginning of a terror he could not escape. Robert stood paralyzed, trapped in the spectral grip of the entity that had materialized from the shadows. Its presence was suffocating, its gaze penetrating his very soul with a cold intensity. "What are you?" Robert managed to stammer, his voice trembling with fear. The entity's lips curled into a malevolent smile, revealing jagged teeth that glistened in the dim candlelight. "I am the harbinger of your desires," it hissed, its voice echoing with an otherworldly resonance. "You invoked me with your desperate plea for wealth, and now, you are bound to me." Fear tightened its grip on Robert's heart as he realized the gravity of his situation. He had sought wealth, but at what cost? The entity before him was no benevolent spirit, it was a dark force, ancient and hungry. "What do you want from me?" Robert asked, his voice barely audible. The entity's eyes gleamed with amusement. "Your servitude," it replied. "You summoned me to fulfill your desires, and in return, I shall take what is rightfully mine." Robert's mind raced. He had unwittingly unleashed a curse upon himself, a pact with a being beyond comprehension. But there was no turning back now. The ritual had bound him to this malevolent entity. As if sensing his thoughts, the entity extended a hand towards Robert, its fingers elongating into shadowy tendrils. Robert recoiled, but found himself unable to move. The entity's touch was like ice, seeping into his veins, filling him with a numbing dread. "You will do as I command," The entity whispered, its voice reverberating through Robert's mind. Your wealth will grow, but so too will your torment. With a surge of dark energy, the entity vanished, leaving Robert alone in the flickering candlelight. The room felt colder now, devoid of warmth or hope. Robert sank to his knees, overwhelmed by the weight of his choices. He had sought prosperity, but had unwittingly invited terror into his life. The entity's words echoed in his mind, a grim reminder of the pact he had sealed. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of a descent into darkness from which there would be no escape. Days passed like a blur for Robert, haunted by the malevolent entities. Presence that seemed to linger around him like a foul stench. Every night, he would hear whispers in the darkness, faint yet unmistakably mocking. Shadows danced on the walls, taking sinister shapes that twisted his perception of reality. During the day, Robert tried to distract himself with mundane tasks, but the weight of the entity's demands hung heavy on his mind. He felt its presence lurking just beyond his sight, a constant reminder of the pact he had foolishly entered into. As the weeks wore on, Robert's wealth did indeed begin to grow. Unexpected opportunities presented themselves, business ventures that flourished, investments that paid off handsomely. His bank account swelled with money, but with each dollar came a deeper sense of unease. The entity's influence became more pronounced. Objects would move on their own accord, doors would slam shut without cause, and strange phenomena plagued his apartment. Robert's nights were spent in fitful sleep, tormented by vivid nightmares of the entity's dark realm. One night, as Robert lay awake in bed, he heard a soft, insidious voice whispering in his ear. "Serve me," it urged, its words like ice against his skin. "You are mine, Robert, your fate is sealed." Sweat beaded on Robert's brow as he struggled against the entity's grip on his mind. He knew now that he was no longer in control. His life had become a puppetry of the entity's design, a plaything in its sinister game. Desperation clawed at Robert's heart. He sought answers, scouring the internet for clues, consulting books on the occult, but found no respite. The entity's hold tightened with each passing day, its demands growing more insistent, more cruel. In the depths of despair, Robert realized the true horror of his situation. He had unleashed a force beyond his understanding, and now, it threatened to consume him entirely. But Robert refused to surrender to despair. With grim determination, he prepared himself for a final confrontation, knowing that the entity's hold on him would only end in one way: death or damnation. The stage was set for a terrifying climax, where Robert would face the entity that had ensnared his soul in a deadly dance of darkness. Robert's apartment felt like a prison, each corner saturated with an eerie malevolence that chilled him to the bone. Days of preparation had led to this moment. Scoured ancient texts for any scrap of knowledge about dark entities and rituals. Night descended as Robert stood amidst flickering candles in his dimly lit living room, clutching an ancient book with weathered pages. The air crackled with anticipation, thickened by the entity's looming presence. "I know you're here," Robert declared, his voice steady despite his inner fear. "Show yourself." Silence followed, broken only by faint fabric rustles and mocking laughter echoing in the darkness. Abruptly, the room plunged into utter darkness as candles extinguished one by one, leaving Robert enveloped in pitch-black terror. From the shadows came a chilling, cruel whisper. "You cannot escape me, Robert. You are mine." A figure materialized, shrouded in darkness, twisting into grotesque, unreal shapes. Robert's breath hitched as he confronted eyes ablaze with ancient malice and hatred. Summoning courage, Robert raised the book and began chanting its memorized incantations. The entity recoiled, its form wavering like smoke in a gust. "Leave me alone," Robert's defiant cry filled the room. "I command you to leave." The entity shrieked, a piercing sound reverberating through the space. It lunged at Robert with dark tendrils, but he stood firm, pouring all his will into the incantation. Light erupted from the book, blinding in its intensity. The entity wailed in agony, dissolving like mist at dawn. With a final scream, it vanished, leaving an oppressive silence in its wake. Exhausted and trembling, Robert collapsed, knowing he had prevailed for now. As dawn broke, he gathered the book and candles, aware the entity's influence linger, waiting for another chance. No longer driven by blind ambition, Robert buried the book where none would find it, understanding its danger and temptation. Walking away, he vowed never to forget the cost of greed and the potency of darkness. For Robert, the nightmare ended, but the echoes of his encounter would haunt him forever.